June 13, 1944. 10:17 a.m. Near Villers-Bocage, Normandy. The hedgerows trembled first, a low, metallic growl rolling beneath the summer heat. Dew still clung to the grass, but the ground shook with the unmistakable rhythm of armoured confidence. The second company of Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 101 was on the move, their engines snarling through the narrow French lanes like steel beasts eager for the hunt. A Tiger tank rumbled at the head of the column, its commander, SS Hauptsturmführer Michael Wittmann, one of the most feared panzer aces in the Wehrmacht, perched half out of the turret, scanning the fields ahead. His men, hardened veterans from Kharkov and Kursk, followed in machines they believed were unbeatable. To them, the enemy's armor was nothing but soft-skinned targets. Shermans. They barely counted as tanks. One gunner muttered over the intercom, half laughing as he wiped dust from his sights. Another day, another Tommy Cooker. If they're smart, they'll run before we waste the shells. The nickname hung in the air, cruel, confident, and earned through months of battlefield encounters where the thin-skinned M4 Shermans had burst into flames under the Tiger's 88mm cannon. The German crews were so accustomed to easy kills that they treated the enemy armor like an inconvenience rather than a threat. But the fields ahead were too quiet. Even Wittmann noticed. He motioned for the column to slow, raising a fist. The Tiger's engines dropped to a deep-throated idle. Birds scattered from the hedgerows. The air grew still, unnervingly still, the kind of silence that makes the back of your neck tighten. Unknown to the Germans, a British crew sat camouflaged just 800 meters away, tucked beneath a hedgerow thicker than stone. The tank was an M4, yes, but not a normal one. This was a Sherman Firefly, armed with the long, slender barrel of a 17-pounder anti-tank gun, a weapon feared even before the Germans knew they should fear it. Inside that Firefly, Trooper Joe Ekins, a quiet, steady young gunner from Northamptonshire, pressed his eye to the scope. Sweat beaded above his brow. The turret hummed softly as it shifted, tracking Wittmann's lead Tiger with painstaking precision. The British commander whispered, "Steady, steady, hold it." The Firefly remained still, patient, predatory, the one Sherman the Germans never expected. Ekins exhaled slowly. A single thought crossed his mind. If this works, the whole road changes. The distance was long. The angle was unforgiving. But the 17-pounder was hungry. Back on the road, two Panzer IVs had pulled up behind Wittmann's Tiger, their crews relaxed, chatting casually. One of them passed around a cigarette. Another joked about reaching Caen before supper. Their overconfidence wasn't arrogance, it was routine. They had never seen a Sherman do anything more than burn. Then, from across the field, a flash. Not the sunlight. Not artillery. Something sharper, cleaner. A single Firefly round tore across the hedgerow gap, slicing through the morning air with a violent crack that made even the birds flee. The German crews whipped their heads instinctively, confusion twisting into panic. Wittmann's Tiger shuddered. Smoke burst from the turret ring. German disbelief arrived a second too late. Before anyone could react, before a single order could be barked, Ekins fired again. And again. 3 rounds, each faster than a heartbeat. In less than 20 seconds, the road that had echoed with German confidence was now filled with the thunder of exploding armor. But this was only the beginning. Because the Germans still believed this had to be a fluke, a lucky shot, a trick of fate. They had no idea what the Firefly could really do. Not yet. And as the smoke began to rise over Villers-Bocage, one chilling truth settled in. The hunter had just become the hunted. For several seconds, no one in the German column moved. The blast still echoed across the hedgerows, rolling like thunder over the wheat fields and stone farmhouses. Smoke curled from the turret of Wittmann's lead Tiger, a sight so surreal that one Panzer IV loader blinked twice, convinced his eyes were lying to him. Wittmann's tank, hit. By what? Inside the crippled Tiger, the intercom screeched with static, the world reduced to smoke, sparks, and the sting of burning insulation. Wittmann himself slammed the hatch open, stumbling onto the turret roof, coughing violently. The wind carried the acrid scent of cordite, and something else he couldn't place yet. Something that felt like danger. He scanned the fields. No artillery flashes. No aircraft. No recognizable threat at all. Just a quiet hedgerow, still as a photograph. And that was the problem. Ambush! Wittmann shouted, waving his arm in a sharp arc. Reverse. Spread out. But the order came seconds too late. Another flash. Another crack. Another round screaming across open ground like a metallic spear. This time, it was the second Panzer IV. Ekins's shot punched straight through the driver's plate, erupting into fire and shrapnel. The tank bucked violently, flames licking through the vision ports. German disbelief shattered. Not a pack gun. Too fast, too flat, one commander yelled, voice trembling. Something else. But nobody knew what. To them, the idea that a Sherman, the same Sherman they mocked, dismissed, and joked about, could fire with that kind of velocity didn't even register as a possibility. Their minds rejected it. Because if it were true, everything they thought they knew about Allied armor was wrong. The column broke into chaos. A third Panzer IV jerked its turret toward the hedgerow, the gunner frantically scanning, heart hammering. But he had nothing, no target profile, no muzzle flash, nothing but leaves. The British had mastered hedgerow camouflage. The Germans had not. When Ekins fired again, the round hit so hard the Panzer's turret snapped off its ring, twisting sideways like a punched can. The crew inside never had time to scream. Wittmann jumped down from his Tiger, landing hard on the dirt. His boots skidded. His instincts, honed across the Eastern Front, screamed at him that this was something new. Something dangerous. Something that could carve through Tigers the way his own 88 carved through T-34s. His driver yelled from inside the tank, "What is it?" "Artillery. A hidden gun." Wittmann stared at the tree line, brow furrowed, jaw clenched. "No," he muttered. "Artillery doesn't shoot that flat." He didn't say the other thought clawing at the back of his mind. And no Allied tank gun should, either. He knew something fundamental had shifted, but he didn't yet know what. Across the field, the Firefly stayed still as stone. Ekins didn't celebrate. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. His commander's whisper filled the tight interior. "Targets, multiple, keep ready." The Firefly's loader rammed another 17-pounder shell into the breech, metal clanging. Ekins adjusted a fraction. Just enough to track movement. He wasn't aiming for Wittmann's disabled Tiger anymore. He wanted the next one to push up, to try to rescue him, and there it was. A fresh Tiger, turret rotating toward their position. Ekins's heartbeat slowed. The world narrowed to the gun sight. He fired. The shot hit the Tiger at the seam where turret met hull, the exact weak point German crews feared but trusted was too small for a Sherman to exploit. Not this Sherman. The round penetrated. Then the tank erupted, violently, catastrophically, the turret lifting half a meter before slamming back down in a shower of sparks. Across the column, shock turned into fear. Real fear. The kind that cuts deeper than shrapnel. "What gun is that?" a German gunner shouted, voice cracking. "That's impossible." But it wasn't. Wittmann finally recognized the elongated silhouette through the hedgerow, the long, slender barrel, the higher turret profile, the distinct muzzle brake. His stomach dropped. "Firefly," he whispered. He'd heard rumors. Whispers from the Eastern Front about a British modification powerful enough to punch through Panthers and Tigers alike. But rumors were one thing. Seeing a Tiger die from a single round, from a Sherman, was something else entirely. He pounded the side of his tank in frustration, shouting for his men to fan out, flank, move, fire, anything to regain control. His voice cracked not from fear, but from rage at the sudden realization that the battlefield had changed without warning. But the chaos was too great. The column was too tight. And the Firefly was too well hidden. Ekins re-centered his sight. 3 tanks down. And the Germans still had no idea where he actually was. The field went eerily quiet, save for the distant crackle of burning armor. Wittmann took one step back toward his Tiger, and then froze. Because through the smoke-covered road, he saw something he had never seen before. Panzer crews retreating. Voluntarily. The unthinkable was happening, and he knew he had only seconds to stop a complete collapse. For a moment, Wittmann simply stared, stunned, as 2 surviving Panzer IVs jolted backward, treads grinding, engines revving in panic bursts. They weren't repositioning. They weren't maneuvering for a flank. They were retreating. Veteran German tankers, withdrawing from Shermans. He felt a cold, unfamiliar sensation climb his spine. Not fear. Not yet. But something close to it, the unsettling awareness that control of the battlefield was slipping from his grasp. "Forward! Hold the line!" he roared, sprinting toward the nearest Panzer IV, boots kicking up dirt. The commander popped from the turret, face pale beneath his goggles. "Sir! We can't see it. It's invisible." Wittmann grabbed the man by the collar, pulling him in close. "Nothing is invisible. Turn your turret and fire blind if you must. We will not abandon this road." But even as he spoke, another Firefly round cracked across the fields. This one missed, barely, slicing through a hedgerow like a knife through cloth, sending leaves and soil exploding into the air. The shot was off by less than a meter. A warning. A reminder. The Germans froze. Every man in Wittmann's column understood the message. The enemy sees you, even if you don't see him. Inside the Firefly, Ekins lowered his cheek back to the gun rest, adjusting for the correction. His commander whispered directions calmly, voice low and steady despite the heat building in the cramped turret. "On. Slight right. 2 mils. Hold." The loader slammed another shell home. The Firefly was ready again. And yet, Ekins didn't fire. Not yet. He watched. Studied the movement. Measured the fear in the way the Panzer IV's turret trembled. Then he took a slow breath, letting the world shrink to the crosshairs. Back on the road, German radio chatter dissolved into chaos. "Tiger down. Panzer IV burning. What hit us? Where? Do we have air support? No. No air." Wittmann vaulted onto the back of the nearest surviving Tiger, Tiger 212. He dropped into the commander's position, engines already roaring. He didn't have to order his crew, they felt the urgency bleeding off him. "Advance," he growled. "We're flushing it out." He believed, or willed himself to believe, that an aggressive push would break the ambush. Shock the British into withdrawing. Assert German dominance the way they always had, through decisive pressure. The Tiger rumbled forward, heavier and more determined than the smaller panzers behind it. The turret swung toward the possible firing line. Inside the Firefly, Ekins followed the movement. The Tiger angled, shifted, revealed the faintest glint of armor through the foliage. "On," his commander whispered again. Ekins centered the aim. Wittmann leaned out of the hatch, scanning the hedgerows for that telltale muzzle. If he could spot it first, even 1 second faster, he could put an 88mm shell straight through the Firefly's hull and end the ambush instantly. But he never got the chance. Ekins fired. The recoil thudded through the Firefly's turret. The round flew straight and true, striking Wittmann's Tiger just beneath the mantlet. Not a kill shot, but enough to stagger the giant. Sparks showered from the turret ring as metal buckled and the Tiger's gun jolted upward. Inside, Wittmann's crew scrambled. "Hit! We're hit! Turret jammed! The gun won't depress!" Wittmann slammed his fist against the turret wall. Jam. A single jam. One moment of mechanical failure, and the odds shifted again. "Reverse! Reverse!" he barked. But as the Tiger crawled backward, struggling to free itself from the crater forming beneath its treads, Ekins was already loading another round. The Germans could feel it now, the shift in momentum. The unspoken truth in every man's eyes. This isn't a skirmish. It's a slaughter. Panzer morale cracked. A gunner abandoned his sight. A loader panicked and dropped a shell. A commander froze, unable to give an order. The myth of German armor supremacy, so dominant, so deeply ingrained, was unraveling in real time. Because the Sherman Firefly wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a one-off. It was the answer to every question Allied tankers had asked for years. And the Germans were learning this the hardest way possible. Ekins fired again. The road lit up. A Tiger's front plate glowed red before splitting open like a furnace door. Flames burst from the seams, smoke curling skyward. The remaining panzers broke, fully, undeniably. They reversed through the hedgerows, crushing shrubs and saplings in a frantic attempt to escape. But Wittmann, he didn't run. He climbed out of his damaged Tiger, standing tall on the turret, smoke curling around him like a shroud. His face was streaked with soot, jaw set in defiance. He refused to accept what he had just witnessed. Yet behind his eyes, buried deep, the realization was forming. This wasn't random. This wasn't luck. This was something engineered specifically to kill him. And Ekins, far across the field, was already lining up the shot that would force Wittmann to make the most consequential decision of the day. Stay. Or charge alone. Wittmann stood on the roof of Tiger 212, smoke drifting around him like a battlefield spectre. The road behind him was no longer a formation, it was a graveyard. Burning panzers hissed and crackled, their black plumes climbing into the Norman sky. The air stank of fuel, scorched rubber, and the metallic tang of ruptured armor. He watched his remaining tanks scatter into the hedgerows. The mighty 101st Heavy SS Panzer Battalion, breaking apart. A humiliation worse than any wound. Wittmann clenched the hatch rim so hard his knuckles went white. His reputation, his legend, had been built on fearlessness, on the belief that a tiger in his hands was unstoppable. Now, a single hidden Sherman had dismantled that myth in minutes. He dropped back into the commander's seat, voice low but burning with conviction. "We go forward," he growled. "Just us. No retreat." His driver hesitated. "Alone, Herr Hauptsturmführer." Wittmann didn't repeat himself. The tiger lurched forward, grinding over shattered branches and the debris of ruined armor. Its engine growled like a wounded animal, but it still moved with terrifying purpose. The entire world seemed to shrink around the tank, to the hedgerow in front of it, the unseen rifle sights behind it, and the lone Firefly waiting somewhere ahead. Inside the Firefly's turret, Ekins followed the tiger's advance with chilling calm. His breathing slowed. His eyes sharpened. The gun's long barrel tracked the dust plume creeping between gaps in the hedge. "Tiger, moving," the commander whispered. "Alone." Ekins nodded once. A simple gesture. Almost gentle. The loader shoved another shell into the breach. Sweat dripped down his temple. Range. 600, closing. Ekins angled the sight. Through the narrow slit, he watched the tiger crawl into view, just the top of the turret at first, then the whole monstrous silhouette, its armor glinting dully under the overcast light. The 88mm gun rotated toward them. Wittmann's voice crackled through his intercom. "Hold steady. We fire the moment we see them." But the Firefly saw him first. The hedgerow parted just enough for Ekins to glimpse the white Balkenkreis on the tiger's flank. He squeezed the trigger. The Firefly roared. The shot smashed into the tiger's mantlet, sending molten shards across the turret roof. Wittmann ducked instinctively, shouting for his gunner to return fire, but the tiger's jammed turret lagged, scraping against its damaged ring. The Firefly reloaded. Wittmann's driver rammed the throttle, trying to close the distance. Maybe at 200 meters the 88 could punch through the Firefly before another round landed. Maybe speed could save them. Maybe. Ekins fired again. This time, the round struck low, right beneath the turret ring. A blinding flash erupted from the tiger's hull. The shockwave rattled the hedgerows, sending leaves cascading like green snow. Inside 212, the world dissolved into white heat. The explosion tore through the ammo racks, flames swallowing the interior. Wittmann was thrown backward, his vision reduced to swirling fire and splintered steel. For a moment, the tiger kept rolling, momentum carrying its burning mass across the ditch. Then the engine seized. The tracks locked. And the tiger groaned to a halt, a smouldering monument to the brutal reality unfolding in Normandy. Ekins stared through the smoke, waiting for any sign of movement. None came. His commander exhaled slowly, almost reverently. "That's it. Tiger down." But victory brought no celebration inside the Firefly. Only a heavy, almost melancholy silence, the kind that follows a necessary kill, not a triumphant one. Across the field, German tank crews who'd once mocked the Sherman now watched their ace fall, not to artillery, not to airstrikes, but to a British tank they dismissed entirely. Panic rippled through the remnants of the German line. Orders dissolved. Vehicles reversed blindly into hedgerows. The road that had once thundered with German confidence was now choked with fear and disbelief. Because the impossible had just become real. A Sherman had beaten the Tigers. And not through luck. Not through numbers. But through a single, precise, devastating weapon, wielded by a crew who refused to blink in the face of giants. The Firefly emerged from the hedgerow at last, rolling slowly onto the road, its long barrel still smoking. Ekins looked out across the wreckage, the burning Tigers, the shattered Panzers, the dark plumes twisting into the sky. He wasn't thinking of glory. He wasn't thinking of fame. He was thinking of the next fight. Of the knowledge that somewhere, beyond another field, behind another hedgerow, more German armor waited, unaware that the Allies now possessed a tank capable of ending their dominance. And at Villers-Bocage, on that single stretch of French road, German confidence had been shattered so completely that nothing on the Western Front would ever feel the same again. By late afternoon, the smoke over Villers-Bocage drifted like a dark banner, visible for miles. Columns of it curled above the hedgerows, announcing to both sides that something extraordinary had happened on that quiet French road. British infantry advancing toward the crossroads slowed as they approached the wreckage, their boots crunching over glass, metal fragments, and the scorched remains of German confidence. The smell of burning oil hung thick in the air. Each ruined tank told its own story, A Tiger with its turret blown open, a Panzer IV blackened from the inside out, another half sunken into a ditch where its crew had tried to escape. But the centerpiece of the battlefield was unmistakable. Tiger 212, Wittmann's tank, lying silent and broken, its armor split by the impossible, a Sherman's gun. Word spread quickly. Sherman crews who had spent years feeling outmatched approached the scene with a mixture of disbelief and reverence. A corporal from the 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry knelt beside the hulking wreck, running a hand along the scorched plate. "Never thought I'd see the day," he muttered. One of the infantrymen replied quietly, "The Fireflies, they're changing everything." And he was right. The Firefly had been designed out of desperation, a British attempt to turn a vulnerable, mass-produced American tank into something that could go toe-to-toe with the best Germany had. The 17-pounder had been considered too large, too unwieldy, too unstable to fit on a Sherman chassis. But necessity had forced innovation. And on this day, in this place, that innovation reshaped the battlefield. Inside the Firefly, Ekins finally allowed himself to lean back from the gun sight. The tension that had coiled around his shoulders for hours loosened. The loader slumped against the turret wall, exhausted, his hands still trembling from the repeated shock of ramming shells. Their commander unlatched the hatch and climbed halfway out, letting sunlight spill into the cramped steel interior. "Good shooting, Joe," he said quietly. Not triumphant. Not shouting. Just the soft, grounded acknowledgement of a man who'd witnessed something historic. Ekins only nodded. He didn't look at the burning German armor. He didn't need to. Instead, he studied the Firefly's long barrel, blackened at the muzzle, streaked with soot, and the faint shimmer of heat radiating off it. That gun had not just saved his life. It had changed the balance of the war. But the battlefield was not done teaching hard lessons. British command soon learned that the Tiger column they had engaged was no ordinary armored thrust. It was commanded by one of the most feared tank aces in the world. Wittmann's name alone had carried weight, whispered among Allied crews like a curse, a legend, a warning. Now, his tank was smoking on a French roadside. Shock rippled across the German lines. Reports flooded into Panzer division that Wittmann's assault had been halted, not by mines, not by air power, but by a single Sherman. Confusion turned to disbelief. Disbelief to panic. And panic to retreat. Officers shouted over one another, arguing whether the British had brought new tank destroyers, new armor-piercing rounds, or some experimental weapon into the fight. None wanted to admit the truth. The Allies had found a way to kill Tigers. And the psychological impact was immediate. Across Normandy, German tank crews began spotting the elongated silhouette of the Firefly barrel in hedgerows and fields, and suddenly choosing caution where they once charged. Tigers hesitated. Panthers withdrew from engagements they would have previously dominated. Commanders second-guessed every move. Fear had entered the German ranks. Most battles are won with steel. Some are won with fire. But this one, this turning point, was won with doubt. As the sun dipped behind the Norman orchards and the last fires sputtered out, Ekins and his crew climbed from their tank. Their uniforms were blackened with soot, their ears still ringing, their faces exhausted. But there was a calmness in their expression, the knowledge that today they had stood against the best Germany had, and they had prevailed. Not with luck. Not with numbers. But with a weapon engineered to do the impossible. And from that day forward, every Tiger commander rolling through Normandy would have one thought in the back of his mind. Somewhere out there, a Firefly is waiting.